material simulation. So there are different simulations that we do. So we will come into that. So this stress-strain relationship is mainly used into that. And different mechanical properties, they are also based on hardness and how a material behaves when the effect of temperature on the material. Some materials it stays hard even on high temperatures. Some materials deform at higher temperatures or at lower temperatures. And the fourth one is the fluid properties. So that is used in what that is used in like CFD. Okay, CFD is computational fluid dynamics. That is one. That's a huge topic, and most of the companies they have got separate CFD department. So in CFD department, they work heavily on those fluid properties of the materials and different experiments based on that. So as we know that if a component is subjected to a static stress, it can have one of the three behavior. Okay, one is the tensile behavior. Okay, when you stretch the component. One is the compressive behavior, and one is the shear behavior. So from these three different force applications, we can get three different stress values based on the material behavior. So most of the components here you can see that is elastic and perfectly plastic. So these are the three categories. First one is the perfectly elastic. It means once the force is applied, the component is going to deform. But once the load is removed, the material is going to come to its original state ultimately. Okay, there is no permanent deformation. That's what a perfectly elastic material is. Okay, and there is one more which is called elastoplastic and perfectly plastic. So most of the components are elastoplastic. It means that once a force is applied, then it will behave elastic uh, till a particular till the yield strength is attained, and after the yield strength it goes into plasticity. Okay, so uh, once it goes into plasticity, even if the material is removed, even if the load is removed, then also the component is not going to come to its original state. Okay, there will be permanent deformation. So most of the materials that we deal in industry, they are elastoplastic materials. Okay, because load application, mostly those are fatigue load application that we do, or dynamic load applications. Then elastoplastic materials, they or getting the stress strain relationship of elastoplastic material, they are really useful. So yes, now we should know how these material properties they are determined. Okay, one of the most basic mechanical testing that is done is Schroeder tensile testing. Okay, it is done in a device known as a universal testing machine. The image is on the slide below. So here the sample is placed and it is stretched. So then the sample, as you can see, it is clamped, vertically, and it is stretched for about, say, for a certain amount of time. Then the sample, as it stretches, then the cross section of the component, or the cross section of the material, it decreases at the center and ultimately it fails. Okay, the necking or the fracture happens, the one on the right side, and ultimately it fails. So during this behavior, okay, once the stretching, once this load is applied, tensile load is applied, then this stress strain curve can be determined from that sample. So till elastic zone, it's going to behave like elastically. It's not going to come back to its original state. But once this necking and the fracture happens, it goes into plasticity and ultimately fails. So this stress-strain relationship can be used for carrying out different simulations, and so that we can get the accurate value of, or we can get the most optimized design using this stress-strain relationship. So again, there are a couple of more mechanical testing that is done. That is, impact testing, creep testing. Impact testing is mainly done for testing the impact capacity of a material, mainly that is used for even for crash testing, I guess. And one is the creep strain. So creep is the behavior of the how the material behaves, in different temperatures. So once the temperature of a material, if it is increased or decreased from a normal room temperature, how the material is going to behave. So there are some materials which is very tough at room temperature, but once the material, the temperature is increased or decreased, then it behaves in a completely different way. It becomes, suddenly it becomes very flexible. Okay, it is prone to failure at high temperature. So this creep test is very important. So these are some of the few mechanical testing that is done, but out of which the most common one is the tensile testing that is done for almost all the materials. So yes, so once this mechanical the stress-strain relationship is done, so what is the use of, how can you use that? Okay, so for using that, there is something we do which comes under FEA, or the finite element method, or the finite element analysis. So in finite element analysis, the physical structure of the model, okay, it is the physical an environment is created in the software, and the model in which simulation has to be done. So that is replicated in a computer, and different loads and boundary conditions, they are applied, and then we can see how the material behaves or how the component behaves. So if, for example, if by applying a load of 100 Newton, if the component is failing, then we can do some design modification in the component, and then the next iteration that we will do, probably it won't fail by application of the same load. So why FE is important? FE is important because we don't need to do physical testing of the machine or physical testing of the component every time, because that will be computationally, not computational, that will be very expensive in terms of money factor. So, and which is not possible also, because there are at times when the component has to be modified, or we have to do heat and trial for say 10 times or 15 times. So to build a machine, say 10 times, and it will fail for 10 times, and on the 11th time, after doing modification, physical modification, if it passes, then it becomes very expensive. So to avoid that, we replicate the model in computer, okay, and then you can modify it as much as you want, because it is very cheap. You don't need you don't have to uh, modify the physical design. Everything is being done in the computer, so it's very computationally effective also. So the flowchart that you see on right, that's a basic FEA process that is done. So first is identification of the physical problem. Okay, so then we try to replicate the model in terms of geometry, in terms of in terms of boundary conditions and loading conditions in computer. So once the model is created, the image that you can see on left below, it's a model that has been done in FEA, okay? So once the model is created in the software, and again, there are different softwares for doing this. So once the component is done in computer, then in the software, then the different material properties are assigned to the component based on which sub-assembly has got which material. Then we can give the loads and the boundary conditions, and then we can give the calculation. So if on the first design, if it fails, then we can do, we can repeat the process. So here, why material properties are important? Because if we, during the physical, if during the UTM testing, universal tensile machine testing, if we don't capture the material properties accurately, then there will be a vast difference in the result. Okay, then what it should have, how then it would be very different in how it would have behaved in the physical environment. So the density, the stress strain curve, the Young's modulus, the Poisson's ratio, it has to be accurate, and or it has to be as close as possible to the physical material behavior. So then we can get the accurate result, and then how we can improve the model, or that is how we can optimize the model. So once again, once the modeling is done, then we give it for calculation, and after the calculation is done, then we interpret the result, whether if there are area of failure, if the area is failing, or how close it is to failure. And then if we improve the design, then again we start from the physical modeling or the mathematical modeling of the problem. So yes, so this is just a image that I have taken for so that you can understand. So this is basically of a wrench in which the material is steel, and so we have to check whether if we apply some load to this wrench, so how this component is going to behave, whether it's going to fail or whether it will pass. Then if it will fail, then what design modification has to be done. So the below that you can see, the wrench has been divided in number of, say, triangles that you can see. So these triangles are called mesh. Okay, so it is done in all the FEA problems. So once the component, the component for which the simulation has to be done, so we have to divide the component into n number of parts. Okay, so it might be in terms of triangles, it might be in terms of quadrilaterals or tetrahedrals, it might be, there are different ways of doing that. So once this is done, and once the meshing has been done, or the component is divided into n number of parts, then material has been assigned to this component and the loading has been applied. So there we can see, there you can see some red areas. Okay, so these red areas are the areas that are failing or that are prone to failure. So now this result is only possible if we are able to capture the material properties accurately. If we, if by mistake, if we give some wrong material properties, then it's going to behave like, it's going to behave quite differently than what it should have in the physical world. So this is the, just an introduction of FEA, what we do. Obviously, the components that we do, those are not like simple like wrench problems. That is just for example. But this for simple components, yes, hand calculations can be done. But when the components become complex, then it becomes a bit of tedious work, or it becomes next to impossible for doing the hand calculation for the whole assembly. So then we have to take support of like FEA or the software. So as I told you before, the virtual estimation of the physical product, okay, it is only as good as the virtual description of the behavior of its material. So it means that the more accurate we are able to give the material properties as input to the FEA software, the more accurate the result we are going to get. The more accurate the stresses or the failure locations, the more accurate it will be to the physical failure locations. Okay, so the material properties in terms of, there are various material properties that are used in industry. Say for example, as I told you before, uh, there are different linear simulations are carried out, non-linear simulations are carried out. So for linear simulations, mostly it is the elastic limit, yield strength of the material, Poisson's ratio, and density, which is important. And then if a nonlinear simulation has to be carried out, then the stress strain relationship is very important in terms of material properties. And if a dynamic simulation has to be carried out, then the ultimate tensile strength, okay, UTS. So that is used. Then components such as fatigue strength coefficient, fatigue strength components, those are also used. So those, again, those material properties, they are depend on what kind of dynamic simulations you want to carry out. So there are say dynamic simulations as uh, high cycle fatigue, low cycle fatigue, vibration fatigue. So there are different kind of fatigue simulations that can be done. So in high cycle fatigue, there is one curve that is used as SN curve, okay, and for carrying out low cycle fatigue, EN curve is used. So all these curves, they are all that those all these curves, they it comes from the material properties of a component, how the material properties behave in different different say cycles or in different loads. So that's it. I mean, material properties is, you can say, the core of getting the results in FEA simulation. And the more accurately we capture the material properties, the more accurate we can be to the physical world. So yes, that is from my side. Yes, the one that you see, below is the different uh, the material behavior, okay, in terms of number of cycles. Yes, so that's all from my side. So I hope I'm able to make you understand the importance of material properties in the current industry. So if you have got
Hello,
any questions.
uh,
Hello.
Rishikesh sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, there are certain questions which will be posted on the chat button.
Yeah,
If you are done with, you can go through those questions and you can answer them.
sure, sure.
Can you put on your first slide on the screen?
Yes.
Start one, sir. First one, where your name
Okay.
and all is. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. So there is one question which the student is asking:
Mhm.
which shape gives the best results? Square, triangular, or hexagon?
Okay. Okay. So first of all, it's a well-known fact that the 3D mesh, which is the brick mesh, it will give the most accurate result. And but every mesh, it has got its pros and cons. The pro of the hexagon mesh, I have told you the result that you are going to get, it will be the most accurate one. But if the component is complex, then it becomes it becomes a bit difficult to mesh that component using brick mesh alone. Yes, nowadays there are some softwares through which simple components can be brick meshed automatically using hexagon mesh. But if it is complex, for example, if the component is a casting component, then it is difficult for doing a hex mesh. So in those cases, we have to go with tap mesh or 2D mesh. But in terms of result, only if we see the result, then it will be hex mesh, brick mesh. And for 2D elements, if we have done a 2D mesh, then it is always advisable to use maximum of quadrilaterals. For a whole structure, yes, at times it is not possible to do it 100% quad. Normally, what we try is we try to keep the number of triangle mesh to say less than 5%. So if a component, it has got say 100 elements, okay, so then, and if the triangles has to be used, triangles and quad has to be used, then we try to limit the number of triangles to 5%. So in this case, it will be 5% of 100, so 5 elements. So did I answer the question?
Yes, sir. Next question is, depends on application which shape is used.
Yes. So for that's what if it is a casting, if then most preferably 3D mesh is preferred, and 3D mesh is always better when the thickness of the component is more. Okay, more than say 5 mm or 8 mm. So as for most of the casting elements, casting components, the thickness of the component is more, then it is always preferable to use 3D mesh. So yes, for doing analysis of sheet metal components in which the thickness comes to around 3 mm or 4 mm, then shell mesh is preferred. As because the time required for doing the meshing, it is much lesser than than the 3D mesh, and the results will come like quite accurate.
Okay. Next question is, what's degree is it correct that to get better results, we need to lower the mesh size?
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't. Your voice is not audible.
Uh, what's degree is it correct that to get better results?
Yes. So for for getting better result, it is always good to use second order elements or second degree elements. So we can use second degree elements to tetra elements also, hexa elements also. So but the only downside to the second order element is the simulation will take more time, but it is always advisable to use second order elements if we are using 3D elements. So then the stress distribution that we'll see, it will be more refined, more smooth, and there actually is a difference between the same simulation which is carried out through first order elements and second order elements. So once we do the same analysis with the help of first order elements and then second order elements, so seeing the stress difference in between the two components, then we will realize that how second order elements, they are so much better than first order elements.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, the question with the connecting previous question is, what mesh size is suitable?
Yes. So okay. So there is there is nothing like one size fits all. So for different applications, we have got different mesh size. For example, if say for the machine that you can see right now on the screen, so those are like big machines. Okay. So normally the mesh size that we use for this is like around 8 mm, 8 to 10 mm, because the reason being, if we do this whole meshing, meshing of the machine with smaller elements, then for doing a simulation, it will be very computationally expensive. So it will take so much time. So there we have to be cautious as to use the area of failure, the area which is prone to failure. So there we have to do some mesh refinement. So there, yes, maybe we have to use smaller mesh, but in total, normally we use coarse mesh. So in this machine, we use normally 8 to 10 mm mesh, but if we have to do say, a simulation of a smaller component, then maybe yes, even there are at times when we have used even 0.5 mm mesh or even 0.1 mm mesh also I have used at times, if it is a very small component and a very accurate result is needed. So it really depends on the application. It is not like we can use the same mesh for all the applications. So it depends on the applicability.
Sir, next question.
Yes, sir.
For
Hello.
designing a piston of four-stroke cylinder,
Hmm.
what different types of simulation techniques are used, and what parameter decide that your design is correct?
Okay. So here, first of all, as I haven't much experience with pistons, so I won't be able to. But then also, I'll just give it a try. So maybe for that, you have to use first. You have to do a static analysis. So from static analysis, we will know the area of failure, how the material is behaving, how the component is behaving. So if we are able to see some stresses at the locations, then we can do some design modifications. So that is on the static part. And again, there are some components in which, some failures are there which are time dependent failures, and there are some failures which are frequency dependent failures. So there might be at times when a component is not failing in a specific frequency, but when the frequency is changed, then the component will fail, all at once. So so for that, the resonance comes into play. So yes, for that we can also do a frequency analysis. So for frequency analysis, we do model analysis, frequency response analysis, and model transient analysis. So for doing model analysis, through model analysis, we will come to know how we will see the natural frequencies of the piston rod, and how the piston rod deforms in different frequencies without the application of external load. So we can see some different shapes, which are called the eigenshapes or the eigenmodes. So we can see the deformation. So if we are satisfied, or if we can detect the failure or detect the high failure location from that simulation, we can stop there and there. Or if we are not satisfied, if we want to see how the piston is going to behave with, when the excitation comes from the engine, then we can do a frequency response analysis in which the excitation, it comes as an external load, and we can see the material deformation and the material, say, the stresses in uh, different frequencies. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes. So am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. There is another question. What are the different softwares available in market which can be used for simulation purpose?
Okay. Okay. So for doing simulation, there are three basic categories for carrying out simulation. One, first, as I told you, let me go to just a moment. Let me go to that slide so that just a moment. Slide. It's buffering, I guess. Okay, so this, I don't know, it's buffering. Yeah. Okay, so the simulation, for carrying out simulation, there are basically three different fields, three different phases. First one is called the pre-processing. So for the pre-processing, the one that I've explained to you, the component is divided into various, squares, rectangles, or hexagons. So that's a pre-processing. So once that the meshing has been done, then the loads applied, the loads are applied, and the materials are applied, and then next it goes to a solver. Okay, so the different softwares are used for solving, and once the solving is done, then we do the post processing, or what is called the, or what you can call as the result interpretation. So there we see how, what are the stresses, what are the deformations. So for it, a different software is used. So for pre-processing in industry, like 70% or 80% of the cases, hypermesh is used. Uh, so it is used in most of the industries because it is quite friendly, and you can learn the software quite easily. And for doing some complex meshing, there is one software which is called ANSA. ANSA is also used in, say, maybe 25% or 30% of the companies. So mostly it is hypermesh. So once this hypermesh meshing has been done in hypermesh, then depending on the simulation, different softwares are used. I mostly work with Abacus and OptiStruct. So Abacus is really good when you have to do some nonlinear simulations. Okay, nonlinear material, nonlinear contact, nonlinear geometry. So for non-linearities, Abacus is really good, and OptiStruct is also good for carrying out, say, model analysis. OptiStruct and Nastran, those are really good for frequency level problems. And if you have to do some dynamic analysis, say fatigue calculations, then there are softwares like Encode. I work in Encode. So Encode is most of the companies that do work in fatigue, they use Encode. It is because it is very user friendly and easy to understand. And once the solving is done, then for doing the post processing, uh, for most of the solvers, it has got their own post processors. I use mostly Hyperview, as because it comes with Altair package of so the package, one package Altair, it has got Hypermesh, Hyperview, Hyperbeam. So I use Hyperview because it is very friendly. I don't use much of Abacus CAE or Abacus post processing, as because I believe that it's a bit difficult to handle big models in Abacus post processing. Okay, even though Abacus as a solver is very, very good, but Abacus as a post processor, I feel more personally, I feel more comfortable with Hyperview. So, and there are many options that now, earlier they didn't have much options with Hyperview, but now they have come up with really many options. So that's it. And for, yes, that is for all these things. For crash simulations also, there are altogether different softwares like LS-DYNA, PAMCrash. I guess PAMCrash and LS-DYNA they use extensively. I don't have much experience with crash softwares, so these are the two softwares that I've seen engineers using. Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Rishikesh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are the different? What's the role of CAE engineer in upcoming future, as there is automation in CAE now?
Yes. So as I told you, say maybe 50 years back, or when there was not much development in FEA, then every testing has to be done as like hit and trial in on field, okay, or in physical validation. So there it becomes very expensive for the company to bear such a cost, when, especially when failure happens for multiple number of times in multiple designs. And so FEA is very, very good for doing those calculations virtually. So yes, I believe as long as we have the mechanical industry in the world, so FEA will be there. And FEA, as I told you, it is used in all the industries. Okay, so let it be automotive industry in say both in on road as well as off road. Now they also use FEA in oil drilling companies also. So basically they use CFD. Mostly they use CFD and even CAE also in oil drilling companies. So I believe yes, scope is there as long as mechanical industries are there. Scope will be there for FEA.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah. What should be main parameter to select boundary conditions for CFD, as it is difficult for hand calculation compared to any structural analysis?
Yes. So, okay. So first of all, I don't have, I work mostly into CAE. I don't have much experience with CFD. So I guess I won't be the, correct person to tell about the boundary conditions. So CFD, no, I don't have much idea how, on what parameters the boundary conditions are defined. Or maybe I can get back to my friends and I can let you know. So I'll ask my friends who works in CFD. I'll ask them how they on what parameters they do the boundary conditions. Then I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay. Sir, one last question from my side.
Yeah.
Can you please give the tips to the students, as now they will be promoting to third year?
Okay.
What analysis software they should start practicing, so that it will be useful for them for their placements, which will be starting in the final year?
Yes, yes, yes. So first of all, see, almost all the companies who hire freshers for in FA department, most of the companies initially they will expect a basic pre-processing software that you know. Okay, so if you know Hypermesh, it is very good. Or maybe you can just go through the software. If you can download a student version of the software, then you can download the software and give it a try. Maybe for around 10-15 days or for a month, then you will become friendly with the software. Then you will know how what are the different commands in the software that can be used, and that is on the software part. And mostly the say the stress strain relationship, most of the companies they ask to freshers, like they go deep and deep and deep, and they will ask you the stress strain relationship curve, stress strain curve for maybe around half an hour. Okay, they will try to go into each and every detail of how that maybe they will give you just a simple example. Maybe you can explain with a simple mile seal. Okay, you have to explain the whole thing in detail, and then they are going to pose their questions like how what is elastic limit, so what is say so when does necking happens, and and all these things. So for that, for getting the specific questions regarding to, and yes, also bending moment, SFD BFD diagrams. At times they may ask you to draw some SFD BFD drawings, and maybe they do it mostly for freshers. It mostly comes down to the basics of all that we have learned in engineering. So for sure 90% of the questions will be from like the basics, because they also know that for freshers, they don't have so much, they don't have much, exposure to industry. So industry specific questions, maybe yes, one or two, but mostly it will be SFD, BFD diagrams, the stress strain relationships, or they will ask you to pick one subject, and they will ask questions regarding that. So things like that. Or maybe if it comes down to software, they will ask you like, are you comfortable with Hypermesh? Then maybe, for doing 2D elements, what are the quality checks that you do? Maybe then you can, the work page, what is the work page? First of all, how do you define a work page? Or what is the value of work page that you keep? What is the value of maximum and minimum triangle? What is the value of Jacobian? What does Jacobian means? And for finalizing a mesh model, what are the things that has to be done? Like the free edges has to be checked, the boundary conditions has to be checked, then the forces has to be applied, the normals has to be oriented properly. I mean, all these things, like just the basics of how the model is prepared for giving it for simulation. I think that will be enough. If you just go through these things once, I think it will be enough for cracking interview. And I mean, apart from that, maybe if you have once you get say your interview scheduled for this FA department, maybe you can give me a call. Then you can I can let you know what are the certain questions, or they may ask you, or if you have some doubt, you can anyways you can call me. I'll give my number to JT sir, so I'll try to help as much as possible.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Rishikesh sir, thank you for this wonderful session, and
Okay.
hope students are learning. Learning is very good, and the inputs that you have given, it is also very good, which will help for them their future about
Okay.
thinking about the engineering. Okay, thank you,
Okay.
thank you for this
Thank
session,
you, sir. Yeah.
Rishikesh sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone. And if you have, any questions or any doubts regarding my presentation, or anything in general regarding FEA, then obviously, for sure, you can give me a call. I'll try to help you with all the interview questions, or if any doubts that you have. So it was really nice, presenting in front of you guys. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
and
Bye.
I will declare that this session is over. And students, please attempt all the activities which is given on the Genome U. Today we are posting activity number 3. So please try to attend that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all of you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Bye.